What up, guys? It's Dom and welcome back to another movie review. Today we're going to be going over 127 Hours. 127 Hours. Written and directed by Danny Boyle, a mountain climber becomes trapped under a boulder while canyoneering alone near Moab, Utah, and resorts to desperate measures in order to survive. Let's get right into the 10 essential aspects of a movie. The first essential aspect is plot. Now, I really enjoyed the plot of this movie. However, the first 15 to 20 minutes of an introduction, I think could have been a lot better. I don't know. It wasn't a good intro to this really good story, especially since this is a true story. So I get that if they want to really resemble the true storyness, real life isn't as interesting as movies, but they could have still introduced the character way, way, way better. Like, I was really bored for the first 10 to 15 minutes, but then once it got actually to the point where he was trapped, that was all really interesting. I really liked that they actually went into detail of what you might have to do once you're trapped there for a certain amount of time, and would you be willing to do the sacrifice of what you have to do. So I thought the plot was honestly really, really good. I just think it could have been cleaned up towards the beginning. The second essential aspect is attraction. So this movie did have its entertaining aspects, but that wasn't the full focal point of the movie. It was more of the premise, because the premise of seeing someone be stuck in a terrible position and needing to find a way out no matter what kind of desperate measures they have to do is really interesting. Because if you got stuck, for example, somewhere, what would be the first thing that you try to do to get out of it? And if you watch this movie, I don't think it'll be the same thing. This guy has canyoneering experience. He's been in caves. He's been in situations similar, and he knows how to get out of them. Once he tries all that, he kind of loses hope. I feel like me, if I got stuck in the same situation he was in, I would lose hope so much quicker. So it was interesting to see how this person tried to get out of the situation compared to others. And I think that was the whole point. I really don't think it was meant to entertain. So the part that was attracting viewers to the movie was definitely just the concept. The third essential aspect is theme. So the theme is kind of tricky with this movie because sure, you could take the general theme of what would you do if you were stuck under a boulder, which would be very simple. But I think the deeper message that this movie is trying to convey is you really don't know what you have to lose until you're at that point where you know you might die. Because, for example, Aaron was living his life to the fullest. He really had no worries. He didn't really think he had anything that was that major in his life. And then when he's about to die, he gets flashes of all of these things that he will be losing. And he realizes how much he actually cares for everything. So I thought that was definitely the message, but you could also go with the simpler one, of course. The fourth essential aspect is dialogue. So obviously the main source of dialogue was James Franco. He played Aaron. He was the main character. So most of the talking came from him. And not talking about the conversations that he had between other characters, the part that I really enjoyed was when he was talking to the camera. Like, he had his camera, he was recording it to show his experience that he did later in life, obviously. But what he was doing with the camera, talking kind of like a diary type thing, I thought that was really interesting, and it did really sound. He had the fear in his voice. It sounded like he was actually scared to die, and that is kind of hard to do. It's kind of hard to portray something that you've never experienced. So I think that he did an amazing job with the dialogue. Like, even the hysteria part where it looks like he's going crazy because he's been down there for so long. He did a great job showing that kind of dialogue and obviously saying that kind of dialogue. But either way, that was definitely the main point that I wanted to focus on, and James Franco did a great job. The fifth essential aspect is acting. Now, just like I said in dialogue, James Franco is the focal point of this movie. He played Aaron Ralston, the main character, the person that went through this in real life. And honestly, I feel like he did a great job portraying the crazy story that Aaron had to go through. I think he did a great job with the emotions, definitely with the dialogue, with showing especially when it comes to emotions, showing the fear. And honestly, it was very believable. It felt like I was watching him actually be in this situation. So that's really all he needed to do for the acting, was to pass by as realistic. And I think that's exactly what he did. He did a great job with that. The sixth essential aspect is cinematography. Now, when it comes to cinematography in this movie, I would like to shout out one specific scene. And I'm going to give a spoiler warning. So skip to the timestamp up above if you do not want to see this scene, which I would recommend to even people that have watched this movie. Because in this scene, Aaron is cutting off his arm and he is playing with it with the nerve. And in real life, I felt the pain that this man was going through. I don't know if it was the sound that happened whenever he played with the nerve. Just the overall look of the arm being cut open. That is bananas to me. It's just absolutely crazy. I cringed watching it. It hurt in real life. I don't know. It was absolutely, I cannot unsee that scene. But another cool thing that they did with cinematography and the way of showing the scenes is when he stabbed himself into the arm, seeing almost like an inside camera of him hitting the bone. And then when he eventually breaks his arm, you see the bone bend first and then snap. Oh my goodness. I don't know why those scenes just were really unique and really cool. And I'm glad they introduced these kinds of scenes in this movie, because it honestly made it more of an experience. Like, I felt his pain in that moment. So cinematography, they did a really good job. Of course, the movie also looked great because the scenery was so good as well. So yeah, definitely good on cinematography. The seventh essential aspect is editing. Now, this movie is an hour and 34 minutes long, and I thought that was a pretty good length. I mean, it was long enough to tell the full story, but not so long that they had to add more, just like the beginning, of kind of boring parts to make it more realistic. I thought they did a great job of just quickly doing that little introduction, going right into the part that everyone wants to see, him being stuck, and reaching the end of the movie. And I thought it was paced perfectly. They didn't spend too much time at the beginning and the end, and they showed the most, probably 75% of the movie was just in that one spot where he's stuck. And I thought that's exactly what they needed to do. So I thought all the scenes were definitely paced well. They did a great job. The eighth essential aspect is soundtrack. Now, I don't really remember the soundtrack. I remember it being okay. Some parts definitely fit really, really well, and I liked the soundtrack that they fit for some of them. But a lot of the times, it was just okay music that just wasn't supposed to be too memorable, which is probably why I don't remember it. So I guess an okay job with the soundtrack. Nothing much else to say. The ninth essential aspect is directing. So the director of this movie is Danny Boyle, and it was his job to take these previous 8 essential aspects, put them together to make a movie that's worth watching. He definitely made a movie worth watching. I would definitely rewatch this. I thought the concept was really, really good. I think they chose a really cool, true story to base the movie off of. Obviously, James Franco's acting was incredible in it, and because they spent so much time in that movie just in that spot, showing what he's going through, what he has to do to get out of that, I thought it was a very good movie. I would definitely rewatch it. I would definitely recommend it to a friend. So I think he did a great job. And he has previously directed eight movies, and they were Shallow Grave, Trainspotting, A Life Less Ordinary, The Beach, 28 Days Later, Millions, Sunshine, and Slumdog Millionaire. Now, I've seen none of those other movies, but I mean, he has a good job pacing the movies, so as long as those were paced pretty well, it makes sense why he got it to this point. So I just think he did a good job with this movie. He probably improved from the other ones. And the 10th essential aspect is time. So 127 Hours was released in 2010, so it is about 14 years old as of the recording of this video. And I thought that it still stood the test of time. I mean, I've heard of this movie plenty of times since it's released, so I think it's still relevant to some point today, and I really think that's just because of the story it's based off of. Like, that's the kind of story that you want to hear and you want to find out what happens. Not a lot. There is some movies that are based on true stories that are really, really good and really, really bad. I feel like there's no middle ground. This is definitely the really, really good. I think that the story that it was based off of was really interesting and intense enough to make a good movie about it. Sometimes there's movies with true stories that the story is just not good enough. It's not good enough to be on the big screen. But this one definitely was. So I think it definitely stood the test of time. I think it will continue to. Now, onto the reviews. So these reviews are kind of spread out, which makes sense for the type of movie it is. It really just depends on who you are. Rotten Tomatoes critics gave it a 93%. Rotten Tomatoes audience gave it an 85%. And IMDb gave it a 75%. Now, it makes sense why critics put this movie so high up. The plot's really, really good. The acting's really, really good. And audience definitely slightly lower and IMDb even lower because it really just depends. The story is not meant for entertaining. It's meant to be a really good concept and a really good story. I know I've probably been saying story so much in this review because I keep saying true story and everything. So, but either way, yeah, it's meant to be a good story. So if you're looking to listen about what something, or watch, I guess, what someone experienced in a very tragic experience, I mean, you're going to love this movie. But if you're looking to watch a comedy and James Franco making good jokes and everything, like this isn't The Interview. That makes sense why it's so spread apart. But I kind of agree more with the Rotten Tomatoes audience than anything else. And finally, the rankings. Where will 127 Hours rank in its year, decade, and in all time? Let's find out. Starting in 2010, it's going to rank second. It's going to be right above Kick-Ass and right below Megamind. Now, I don't really think I have to talk about why it's there, because it is clearly a better movie than Kick-Ass. Kick-Ass was funny, and it was a really cool story, but it had a lot of cringy moments. There was really badass moments, and there was really cringy moments. It really got lowered for me. I did really enjoy it, and I probably would still rewatch it, but I would rewatch it for the funny superheroes, not the really cringy bad guy. And Megamind, I mean, that's basically a masterpiece. I really don't have to say why this is below Megamind. I would rewatch Megamind so many times. It is still one of my favorite animations to this day. The plot is so well paced and thought out in general. It's just, the characters are amazing. I don't think it's really necessary to talk about why it's in between those two. And in the 2010s, it's going to be 8th, and it's going to be above X-Men Apocalypse and below X-Men First Class. I just think Apocalypse has a lot of points where I'm pulled out of the movie. I'm just like, that could have been done better. That could have been done better. Why is this character like this? Why is that character like this? And 127 Hours, I was never really pulled out. Sure, that first beginning part with the 10 to 15 minutes of introductory stuff that I really thought was useless and I could have been pulled out. But the rest of the movie, I was just so hyper-focused. I wanted to see how he was getting out of this situation. So that's really why I'm putting it above X-Men Apocalypse. And X-Men First Class, perfect plot. I would not touch it with a 10-foot stick. I like, that movie is so great. I really couldn't see myself putting 127 Hours over it. And in all time, it's going to be 11th. It's going to be above The Thing, but below X-Men Origins Wolverine. Now, if you watched that review, X-Men Origins Wolverine, you know I'm not going to put this above it. I love that movie. I thought it was an amazing origin story. I think it's very underrated. And I could not see myself in any way putting 127 Hours over it. So I didn't really think about any reasons why. But I did put it over The Thing because both are really cool concepts. I just think 127 Hours, probably because it's based on a true story, but I think it was thought out better. It was definitely portrayed better on the big screen than The Thing was. Don't get me wrong, The Thing is an amazing movie. I definitely rewatch it. I thought the concept was really cool. The characters had really good dialogue and communication, but I don't know. 127 Hours, I just found myself enjoying it a little more. So that's really what it boiled down to. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed this movie review. If you did, leave a like and subscribe, and make sure to comment what movie you want me to review next. Hope you guys have an amazing day. Peace out.